I know you have to make sure that you're being loud. Am I in the center or do I need to move over? A little taller. That way it'll be up on my level a little bit. Oh man. Yeah, good morning first off. Glad y'all are here. Super excited about this. So funny little backstory. My last pig that I ever showed in Sunray was named Samson. And he was a big old cross. He's like 280 pounds is the max weight you can get on a show pig at that time. So I mean he kind of fit the name perfectly. So yeah, I was pretty excited whenever I got asked by Rob to do, a lesson on Samson, and I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna have to do a PowerPoint on this just because pictures are fun. I'm still a kid at heart, so it's just one of those stories that's kind of stuck with me, and even some of the stuff that we're gonna go through this morning. It was good, to kind of think about the things and everything else kind of surrounding all of Samson and kind of what he went through, and also, stuff that we'll talk about this morning going through. So, yeah, and it's just fun with pictures on when we go back into the Old Testament. As a kid, that's what you remember. You see all these pictures, you see all this stuff, because that's how you learn. You're, listening to the lesson, you're reading the words, but you're also getting pictures, so it's always good stuff to kind of remind you of that and give you a visual on that. So before we start, do you want to do an opening prayer for that and prayer request? I don't have a pen or anything like that, so I'll start your little notebook. Sorry. Do we have any prayer requests this morning? Israel Icon? Licon? Yeah. Licon? Okay. 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 And they did have surgery and stuff on his knee? Okay. Okay. Awesome. Is there? So, yeah, they had a niece that was born, and she had a little bit of complication just at first on probably they just needed to make sure O2 was kind of getting up to where her lungs were functioning right. But she's in the NICU for a little bit, but she's doing good now. So, Josephine Lane, is that her? It's pretty cute. Yep. I'll be sure to yell on the mic for you, Tom. It'll be all right. I get loud anyway, so. Okay. Okay. So Brian Christmas. Yep. Okay. Oh. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I know the kids have definitely enjoyed having him here and stuff to help out, so. John Rowland's mother, is in what's her name? Joni? Okay. Oh, okay. And then Bobby Mayfield's having knee surgery this week. Okay. Is it military or? Okay. Yeah. Julio? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Any others? Here, we can do this too. Hopefully it won't affect the reverb in it, but it should be all right.
Would you bow and pray with me? Lord, we come before your throne. Thank you for all of our many blessings. Lord, help us to always be mindful of all the little things that you give us. The sun in the day brings forth food, brings forth the ability to work. The moon at night, help us to remember that you haven't forgotten us. Lord, we appreciate all these little blessings, the rain and the dry, the growing seasons and the time that, in the wintertime. Lord, help us to always be mindful of our work. Lord, would like you to be with Israel and his knee. He seems to be getting around all right. Lord, help him to slow down a little bit, let it heal. Let him not get too rambunctious with it. When we're young, we have a tendency to push the limits. And Lord, help him just to be patient with this. Would like to say thank you for Josephine Lane, the little baby girl that was born. Lord, it's always a marvelous thing when we have people enter our life, these new lives, and we're always anxious to see what they become. Lord, help us to see that, and fulfill those dreams. We'd like you to be with Brian Christmas and his family as they're dealing with cancer. Lord, help that this new trial will be a positive benefit to them, and be with the doctors, be with the family, that everybody is able to see your mercy in all things. Be with Jackson. We've loved having Jackson here. He's been a light to our life here. Lord, help us to also be the light to him. Help him to be encouraged, to stay faithful. And Lord, help us to be mindful of our preachers and our ministers, and all the little things that people do throughout the church that make all of these things function in a family. Would like you to be with John Rollins, his mother, Joni, as she is dealing with cancer. Lord, help us to always think of what is best for our families. Help her be encouraged, and help the family be encouraged. I know these are difficult times. Lord, would like you to also be with Bobby Mayfield and his surgery. I didn't know that he was having problems with his knee, so that's new to me. But, we're always encouraged by Bobby and his family. And we're always willing to take the extra step to say a prayer for them, because they've been so encouraging to so many of us. And Lord, be with H.A. Carter last but not least. His surgery, help him to heal and help us to keep him encouraged. And I always enjoy getting a hug from H.A., so I'm looking forward to that again soon. It's all these things that we give thanks for. Sometimes we're asking for all these things without knowing whether we're going to receive them, but we need to be thankful for them before they happen. But also we need to be looking for the spiritual blessings that come through trials, as in James chapter 1, 2 through 8, so that we may be better and more perfect in your kingdom. It's in Jesus' name that we pray and give thanks. Amen.
All right, so we'll get going on this morning. So we'll be in Judges, and I went ahead and started with chapter 13. So there's no follow-up, so this is it for Samson. So this week I packed everything in, so that helped me too with the slideshow to keep me on track, because I still want to cover everything that we can. So we'll move through this kind of quick. We'll get all the highlighted stuff off of it, just to kind of reiterate what really I want to kind of portray across at the end and what we can really talk about. So as we go through, we'll start out in Judges 13, 3 through 5. So this is when it kind of comes into where Manoah's wife, which is kind of funny to me because I kept reading through, and as a kid, her name is actually never mentioned. And so I looked it up just to see if there was anything research done on it. There were two names that were kind of given, and I'm not going to try to pronounce them because it's like a Zelanella Ponai, and then there's like a Helenella Ponai. There's like two different words that she probably would have been called as far as that time in I guess maybe the name popularity contest that was going on at the time, and what they named, their daughters at the time. So that was kind of funny to me. I never realized that as a kid when you learn this story. So refresh myself on this. It was quite interesting to kind of research this and find this too. So but the angel appeared to her, going through too. She saw the angel as kind of like a man, and she thought it was an angel because he's promising her this stuff that she's going to conceive a child. She was barren. She, was never had the ability to give birth. So it was a promise to her. But she was also given a lot of commands too. No wine, no fermented drink, anything like that. No unclean food. And then the Nazarite promise that he could not ever cut his hair. It's kind of interesting to me too, because I thought, well, you have this grown man running around that's never touched his head with anything, and I mean, he probably looked like a wilderness man, and some of these pictures too, it really probably doesn't even depict what he looked like. He probably was walking around looking like a grizzly bear. So I know his hair was braided into 7 braids. We'll cover that later. But it was, kind of that promise too that they could not do. It also says that no razor shall touch his head. So, I mean, could he go in and get a trim, knock off the dead ends like, I know y'all ladies do that just to get your hair to grow. So I don't really worry about it. I kind of just knock off what I need to stay cool. But, it's kind of lost in translation in that part. Maybe he was able to go in and still kind of keep it at a minimal length, just not ever really shave it off and actually, clean against the scalp kind of deal. So, and then he was promised to deliver Israel from the Philistines. At this time, the Philistines, they're a tribe that no longer exists, because I looked that up just to see if there's anything like that, but one of the ancient tribes that kind of ruled over Israel at that time. Sorry, this is probably my worst slide, and I hate doing this, but I want to cover as much of these sections as we can. So as we continue in 13, 8 through 23, that's when the angel of the Lord appears again. And so as she's out in a field, the angel appears again, telling her the same thing. So she goes in, tells Manoah that the angel has appeared, and so he follows her out to the field, and that's when he actually speaks to the angel himself, and he's told about the commands that she has to follow. So then Manoah offered to prepare a young goat, which this was just like, hey, I'm going to feed you, you're here, kind of that courtesy, that tradition. They always welcomed in guests, travelers, anything like that, because they were living righteous people, following all these old commandments, and that was the time, when they were just loving neighbors, or, even taking in strangers, kind of deal like that. Because at this time, Manoah did not even know this was an angel. And that's why this picture probably fits it best, because there's nothing really extravagant about this guy. It's just a normal man, right? So as we move forward, Manoah is still just unknown to Manoah that this man is actually an angel. So goes on, and the man says, well, I'm not going to eat any of your food. I'm not going to partake any of that, but you can offer it as a burnt offering to the Lord. So the offering is prepared at that time. The other significant thing that I kind of found interesting in this is when Manoah asked the man his name, because he wanted to honor the man if they did have a son, because it's kind of like, okay, yeah, that's awesome, but we've tried, we can't have a kid, but now you're telling me I'm going to have, a child. So, if that ever happens, I just want to honor your name. It's kind of like, hey, thanks for having that confidence in me. I just want to give a shout out to you later on, and we'll go from there, So this is what I find interesting too, is what the angel replies to him, like, it's beyond your understanding. So I don't know what the significance of that angel's name was. Maybe it was a descendant of his that he knew in his ancestry, and he'd known him to be dead for a long time. Maybe it was an angel like that was, someone in his descendants, and it would have been just kind of mind-blowing to him, and he wouldn't have understood actually what was going on at this time. So he understands that it's an angel, and it's pretty amazing. So, and I wish I had a picture before this, but everything I found on all the painted portraits, all the illustrations that you can find, is the angel actually ascended in the flame. So if you think about all three of them standing there, they're, burning a young goat, they're burning grain, they're making an offering, and all of a sudden this man that's beside you ascends into the flame and up into heaven. I don't know what y'all would think at this time, but I'd probably think the exact same thing that Manoah goes through, because he realizes at this point is an angel of God, and oh my gosh, we are gonna die. Like, this is, I don't know what is going on right now, but this is kind of his realization at this point that they were actually, in the presence of God, in an angel. So I know that his wife it's like, hey, it's okay, if he wanted to kill us, he would have already done so. And so the promise is fulfilled in that. But going on to 24 and 25, this is kind of the start of when we really hear about Samson and his actual birth. So Manoah's wife gives birth to a son and actually names him Samson. I put the map up there. Is it better? Actually, you can't see it on here. Okay. On my computer, this map looked really blurred, just like it does at the very back for me right now. So this is actually pretty good. So where they're at in Israel is kind of on the southwest area. So they're kind of a little bit further, even towards Gaza, because Gaza is going to play in a role in this later on too. So, and everybody knows where Gaza's at just because of what's going on right now. So he was born in, and I'm going to probably mess this one up, Menadan, I guess is how you may say that. Does anybody else know how to pronounce that? Close. Okay. I'll just take it as you're right. Between Zorah and Eshtoa. So he was born in that little area right there. And so I don't know if this will actually work from here. Nope, sure won't. So Samson was blessed by the Lord, and he grew. So this is kind of like his growing up area. I put this up here as a significance too, because this is kind of what I always thought as a kid. I was into comics. I was kind of a little bit of a nerd too. So is Samson actually the real Superman? And it's funny too, because the name meaning sun child is what they, it kind of translated in Hebrew, and did a lot of research on this just to make sure I was accurate on this, but that meaning can actually be portrayed as that. So I don't know if anybody else in here is as big a nerd as me, but Superman pulls all of his power from the sun, so I thought that was kind of significant. And then also the symbol is just a straight up S. So there's your Samson symbol there if you ever want to think of someone to relay that to. So he was blessed with incredible strength and other abilities. The other abilities too is kind of what we'll get to on this, and it's kind of amazing on how he turns some of this stuff, and he's actually does some of these things. So we'll move on to Judges 14. So we'll kind of cover 1 and 4. So this is when Samson, he must have been I don't know, probably a later in teen area, and they actually went to Timnah, is how I'm going to pronounce that. And if I'm wrong, y'all can correct me. I won't take any offense to it, because some of these names I will mess up. And he actually saw a Philistine woman at this place. So as he saw this Philistine woman, he requested that his parents go get the woman for him, and to make her his wife. So it was one of those things that you did not go between tribe and tribe. So he was questioned at this time by his parents, saying, "Oh, are you sure? Because why can't you find someone among our people that would be suitable for a wife?" Okay, I don't know if Samson had done any kind of defeat, or feats at this time, to where he's running around just lifting big boulders and stuff and flexing his muscles, and it's not really said anything like that. But he could have been kind of popular. He could have been one of those people, especially around this area, that he was actually known for his strength at this time. But it was just very unlikely and very untraditional at this time to kind of do this. So little did they know at the time, the parents were kind of setting up Samson to have confrontation and kind of some of these conflicts that God wanted Samson to have with the Philistines at this time. So that's when this kind of all sets up the story plot. If you watch those movies where you're just like, oh, I know what's about to happen. So the good guy's about to get the bad guys. So this is what kind of sets this up. And we'll move on to verse 5 through 6, and we'll kind of cover this part too. This is one of the first little extravagant showings of Samson's power. And as they were going through the vineyards there in Timnah, this is when he came up on a young lion, which, kind of trying to find a picture, you see Samson like this tiny dude, like compared to this huge lion. In this area, they did have lions at the time, which I kind of found that interesting. I thought always they were in Africa, but there was a different kind of species of lion. Looks exactly the same, just kind of that descendant of what we have now. And so trying to find a smaller lion to kind of match that, to give you all a visual on that. So if you can think about taking on a lion with your bare hands, I mean, you are a lunch every time. So this is a pretty amazing demonstration of actually his power. And to tear apart a lion with his bare hands, I mean, I don't know how you want to I don't know if he just put him in a chokehold and just choked him out, or if he actually got a hold of him. Because when you fight a lion or fight any kind of cat, because I know that growing up when we had cats, if you ever ticked one off, you weren't just getting the teeth, you were getting all the claws that came with every single paw. And so thinking about that, that's another thing too that he had to overcome, was everything that was attached to that lion too was a pretty good weapon, and the strength of a lion. So God's strength was with him at this time when he did need it, because the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and in power form. So this just goes to show that whenever, God needs you at this point in time, and whatever you're dealing with in your life, then you're going to receive that power. I don't know what happened in the storyline either, because neither of his parents knew what he had done. It really doesn't say anything, because I guess they were all walking together is what it said, but then all of a sudden they're not together. So I don't know if it's like a kid in Walmart where he runs off to the toy section and all of a sudden he's fighting a lion, and then, you see him later on. It's like, hey, what you been up to? Oh, nothing. And it's like, okay, I know you've been doing something, because you're definitely my child. But yeah, they didn't know anything. They didn't know anything about it at this time. So, it's just something that happened. I don't know if he was quick enough with the lion that the lion didn't make a sound, if he didn't scream at the same time as he's being attacked, because I would have screamed, I'd have ran, and y'all would have thought that a little girl was being chased through the vineyard. So, yeah, it's just kind of amazing on just even looking at this right here on what God can give you and the abilities he can give you to face whatever you come in front of. So continuing on, this is kind of the least graphic thing that I could find, a cartoon. So, Samson spoke to the woman, he liked her, and then he went back sometime later. As he went back by, he walked that same path, as a lot of people do, but he knew where that carcass was. So he found that lion carcass, and it was full of bees and honey. So ate honey from an unclean animal. I mean, he's not supposed to take anything from an unclean animal. So that's one thing that I found interesting in this too, is even though he didn't eat a part of the lion, the bees had formed something in temptation. Because having honey, having anything like that at this time, it's not like you go down to the candy store, get you some chocolate, get you some sweets. I mean, to find honey like this in the wild, they definitely, wanted that. So getting him some honey from, an unclean animal was not really something that he was supposed to do with his commands. So something to think about. Even though you do something, and disobey God, that he's still with you. He's still going to provide for you. So just something to kind of think about as we go along. Samson was given, got to the woman, liked her. They're going to be married. He was given the 30 companions from the wedding. So this is significant too, whenever he actually tells the riddle. So he tells them a riddle, and he actually gives them 7 days to solve the riddle. So out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. So this is his, finding honey in the lion and trying to give them a riddle just to, trick them. I don't know how God would feel about that. He's like, I think I can make some easy, 30 linens and some clothing here off of these guys. And so he thought, well, let's just try it. So kind of something else that may have not been seen in the best light whenever God was actually looking at him. So continuing on, 15 through 20, Samson's wife was then confronted because none of them could figure it out. They kept pushing her and everything else, but then they actually threatened her and her father's household, so pretty much her whole family, with death. They were going to, pretty sure it says burn them to death, is what it actually says in here. Yep. So it actually burned you and your father's household. I should have put burn to remind myself. That's why I'm trying to skim through this pretty quick. So yes, so they were actually, and if someone comes up and threatens you that they're going to kill you and your whole family, I mean, I'm pretty sure that you're going to try to get the information right, because you don't want your whole family to die. So Samson was pressed by his wife, to actually explain the riddle. So there's that temptation there. He loves the woman, we'll just say that, and he's in love to that point to where he actually, wants to be with her. So, after being pressed and asked and questioned the whole time, I'm not going to use the word nagging, but that could come into it too, that, for all of this time, now on the 7th day, he finally explains it to her. So he's betrayed by his wife, which I don't know. It's kind of betrayal, but yet he probably shouldn't be doing that to him anyways. And the men actually explain, that what is sweeter than honey and what is stronger than a lion. So they solved the riddle, and they know what he's talking about. So he actually had to pay the debt to the 30 men. So he went to Ashkeola. Is that how you say it? Ashkelon? Okay, thank you. That sounds really cool. Ashkelon. So he went down to Ashkelon, and he collected the debt. So he went, and he took down 30 men. So killed them maybe, but he stripped them of all their clothes and all their linen, and then he actually went back and paid the debt that way. So he was so upset with that he went back to his father's house, and his wife was given to a friend from the wedding. So that's another significant confrontational part of this. So God has a plan, and we just have no idea how it's actually going to play out. So moving on to Judges 15, and we'll kind of cover 1 through 8 in this first part. This is pretty awesome right here. So he went to visit his wife, and he found that she was given away. Like any other husband in here, you go wherever and your wife is given away, you're probably going to be pretty upset. So with him being this upset, he knew that he was going to, kind of do the same thing that to them, what he had felt he had been, done to him. So he actually catches 300 foxes, and he ties them in pairs with a torch to burn the standing grain, the vineyards, and the olive groves that they had. So if I put this this little information in here, a red fox can run 31 miles an hour. A gray fox will run 41. So I don't know how fast y'all are, but that's pretty fast. And I know we have 2 dogs out there at the house that protect our sheep, and sometimes when we drive off, they like to run by the road. And I've clocked them at 25, and they're pretty quick to me, but thinking about a fox now, 31 miles an hour and 41 miles an hour is pretty fast. So in my mind, to actually catch these foxes, if he probably didn't have time to do traps, make traps, do anything like that. So if he just saw a fox and ran a fox down, and if you think about how fast a fox can change direction, this guy definitely had more abilities than strength. He also had speed. I mean, this was pretty quick. So, this was the modern day Superman, pretty, faster than a speeding train. So, it's just one of those things kind of to look at too, that, God blessed him with all these abilities and how he actually used them against the Philistines. So, with him burning all the fields down, though, this came at a cost for him. Because the Philistines, after they had seen what had happened, they went to her family. They said it was Samson that did it, so they actually killed her and her father, and they burned them to death. So they kind of gave them the same treatment. So he once again, vows revenge. So it's kind of like I'm just going to keep, avenging all these deaths that you're doing to me. And he attacks them, and he kills many of them. It doesn't actually say how many he kills at this time, but it was probably everyone that was there or anyone that he could find was involved. And then he goes to stay in a cave in the rock of Edom. So that's the significance kind of going through there. But the fox stuff is pretty amazing to me because I could not catch foxes. I could not catch like a turtle most of the time, so because I don't want to put in the effort to it, but that's pretty quick. So Judges 15, 9 through 20. Samson was approached by 3,000 men from Judah. Okay, this kind of wasn't his enemies or anything like that, but they knew what was going on because the Philistines ran, and they were over the whole land at this time, so he knew that he was kind of in trouble for that, probably why he went up into the cave to kind of be away, and he knew that he was going to be seeked out, and he didn't want his family hurt, anything like that. So they promised not to kill him, though, and they just wanted to tie him up and deliver him to the Philistines because I'm pretty sure he had like bounty posters all over the place, like wanted Samson for, tying up foxes and burning all of our crops down. So as he was taken towards I don't know, is that how you pronounce that? We'll look at you, Joanne. Lehi? Okay, we'll say Lehi. That was kind of my other one I was going to go with. But they were approaching there, and as they came towards that area, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him with power and in power. And so Samson broke the ropes, and he found a fresh jawbone of a donkey. So I put in the dimensions on this too, because he strikes down 1,000 men with a jawbone. A jawbone is approximately 16 inches in length and 7 inches wide. They actually used it as instruments too. I don't know how they used it as an instrument, but hey, let's go play the jawbone of a monkey. Hey, let's go. All right. So, that's just kind of I don't know if he knew how strong it was, but at that time he picked it up. To me, this is a good illustration of this too. He breaks the ropes, finds it, picks it up, and compared to his hand, that's probably a good size comparison. So it's pretty up close and personal. It's not like you're using, a long, bow or anything like that, like shooting them from a distance, or you're not using any kind of sword that has, a 3-foot length on it. It's just the fact you have this little 16-inch, jawbone that you're actually going to strike 1,000 men down. After that battle, which I'm pretty sure that lasted a while. I don't know how long it would take to strike down 1,000 men with the jawbone, but he was very thirsty, and God actually provided him with water. I know there's a part in there too that says that that's still there today, so that'd be kind of neat to go see something, because that was provided to Samson from God. Probably a little oasis that's there. But after this, Samson actually led Israel for 20 years, and he was the 15th judge, I believe, for Israel at that time. So we'll move on to Judges 16. Told you I was going to try to move through this pretty quick so we can get the whole story down. So Samson goes to Gaza, and he stays with a lady. I'm not going to type it up there, but it states in my translation that she was a prostitute. So not something that, is in the Bible that we actually can do. Something very much seen, very, very down by God. I mean, that was something that just succumbing to that temptation again, the honey, everything that he's, kind of been tempted with. He's just succumbing to this temptation stuff. So, even though that you're doing things against God at that time, and you're sinning against God, and what you're actually supposed to be doing, he still stays with you, because he knows that you have a better future than what you're actually kind of portraying at that time. As he's in Gaza, they know and they hear that Samson is there, so they surround him, and they're going to kill him at dawn. So they kind of wait for him. But Samson actually gets up in the middle of the night, and he actually pulls the gate loose. It says bar and all, which I don't know how much steel they worked with, or iron, or anything like that, but city gates were usually, pretty big and wide, made out of pretty big wood, anything like that. So if you've done any kind of lifting cross ties, is kind of what I would compare it to. Stack all those cross ties together to make you doors probably as wide as both of these back here, and you'll have 2 of them together. But it's something to fortify your your city gates. But something wagons can go through, something that people can travel through, camels can fit under. I don't know if they used elephants at this time, but I mean, it's significant size as far as the story is concerned. But he pulls them, and he walks them up a mount or a hill. I don't know, the hills over there too are not like hills over here. We see a hill and we're like, oh, that's a hill, and it's 20 feet taller than the rest of the surrounding. But I mean, we're so flat out here that you can see forever. But he carries up the hill, and that faces Hebron. And so I don't know if he leaves the gates up there, if he sets them up just to kind of make a joke to them, but he does this right here, and it's pretty amazing. Also another feat, even though he was doing something of ill repute, at the time before, he's still blessed, and it's something that he's, not cursed with at this time. So moving on, we'll get into the Delilah issue here. So he falls in love with Delilah, but she's approached with rulers from Philistines, and 1,100 shekels. Is that how you pronounce that? Okay. And it's 28 pounds of silver. So that's around $12,500 today. So Samson tells Delilah that, you know, the 7 fresh bowstrings would make him weak. So he's tied up, but he breaks free of that. So the next one, she asked him the same thing. So he's tied up with ropes, 2 new ropes that have never been used, but it was the same thing. He broke free. So Delilah goes to him again and, you know, tries to see what his weakness is. So at this time, his hair is actually woven, so it's kind of like what you'd make blankets or rugs or anything like that with. But he actually pulls the pin and he breaks free out of that fabric also. So she goes to him again, and, you know, no razor has ever been used on my head. So this is the point where he actually tells her that his hair has to be cut. So whenever his hair is cut, that's when the strength leaves him and he's actually captured. I'll say I see the time, so we're going to have to go really quick. So he was seized and his eyes were gouged out at this time, but then he was taken to a prison and actually made to grind grain and everything else that they needed him. So he was pretty much made to be a mule or a donkey at this time. As they assemble, they want to make a sacrifice to their God, and so they make a sacrifice. They have this big party, and then they want to bring in Samson to actually entertain them. So as Samson is brought in and entertained, they stood him kind of in the pillars. Well, as they stand him in the pillars, he actually asked the servant to put him to where he could feel the pillars that supported the roof. So the temple roof is what he was trying to find, and he couldn't see at this time because his eyes were gouged out. So this temple was probably around 18 feet to 24 feet. It really was not big on that middle section that they were actually entertaining in. But there were 3,000 people in this area or about. People were on the roof looking in because everything was open so you could get light in and you could see in. And he was standing at the 2 main pillars that supported pretty much the middle of the roof. And at this time, he prayed to God for strength, and he wanted to die with all the Philistines. And so he pushed the 2 pillars out. They say they're approximately about 6 feet wide apart, and I know I'm 6'3", so I'd have a hard time even touching that too. So now you can think about the size of Samson. This may not be an average sized man. This may be a guy that's probably 7 foot, you know, maybe a little bit bigger. Either that, he has some really tall arms, or he hit both of them and was able to push them kind of, you know, at different times to knock it all down. But he was retrieved and then buried in his father's tomb. So this kind of gets me to our last point. And this is my last slide. Sorry I went through that as fast as I could. I know I wanted to cover everything with y'all as much as I could. But, you know, thinking about that, like, what does the story of Samson mean to us? You know, what's the significance behind all of these things? And I know that, you know, God's strength for us, you know, and questioning that and seeing what he gives us, what he provides us, what strengths he gives us, you know, what abilities he gives us, you know, are we using them to our utmost at this point? Are we actually using what God provided in our different manners, because we're all provided with something different? And then, you know, showing us that he is strong and we are weak, you know, just like the song that the little kids sing, you know. And it's one of those things that we're trying to, you know, live this life and everything else. We're still weak to temptation. We're still weak to our own mind that we have, but he still stays with us, and he shows us how strong he is for him staying with us, and that significance of that. And, you know, even when we, you know, succumb to our temptations and everything else that's laid out before us every single day, you know, God's not abandoning us forever. He's still staying with us. He knows our potential in the end and where we should be in the end, and kind of where we're gonna, you know, grow to be his Christians and, you know, his people, and meet him in heaven at one, you know, at a later time. We'll just say later time, okay? But, you know, God is with us, you know, even when we're sure he's not there. I'm pretty sure that when he got taken to the prison with his eyes gouged out and he started grinding grain, I'm pretty sure that he probably thought he may have felt a little bit abandoned at that time. His strength had left him. He succumbed to his love for Delilah, and that's what was his, his ultimate ending, even though he had this immense power. So even though you have all these things, even though you have this immense power, even though you have all this going for you, at some point it could be taken away from you. So, and that's what I want to leave everybody with this morning. And I truly appreciate y'all listening to me as I rambled as fast as I could through that. And I really hope y'all got something out of it too. So, thank y'all.